She had always loved music. From a very young age, she would hum tunes that she made up herself, her small fingers tapping on any surface that could make a sound. Her room was filled with old sheet music, worn out from years of practice, and a piano that had been passed down through generations. The piano had scratches and marks, but it was her favorite place in the world. Every time she sat down in front of it, the world around her seemed to disappear. Notes floated in the air, and for a moment, she felt like she belonged somewhere special. In school, she joined the choir because she loved to sing. She dreamed of being heard, of someone noticing her talent. But choir practice was different. The other students were louder, more confident, and often more experienced. When it was her turn to sing, her voice, though clear and sweet, seemed to get lost among the others. She could see smiles on faces, laughter from her peers, and the nods of the choir director, but she always felt invisible. It wasn't that anyone was mean to her. It was just that she didn't have the kind of presence that demanded attention. Despite feeling overlooked, she never stopped singing. She practiced at home for hours, working on her breathing, her tone, and the emotion she wanted to put into each song. Her piano became her secret companion, where she could be free. She discovered that music wasn't just about being heard by others. It was about expressing herself. When she pressed her fingers on the keys, each note carried a piece of her heart. It didn't matter if anyone was listening because the music itself understood her in ways people didn't. The choir was preparing for the biggest concert of the year. The auditorium would be filled with parents, teachers, and community members. Everyone was excited, and rehearsals were intense. The choir director had a reputation for being strict, expecting every note to be perfect and every gesture precise. The main solos were already assigned to the students who had been in the choir for years, leaving her with minor parts. She listened quietly as the director announced the solos, feeling a sting of disappointment. Her heart sank, but she didn't show it. Instead, she nodded and continued practicing her part, hiding the frustration behind a polite smile. She couldn't stop thinking about how it would feel to stand on that stage and truly shine. She imagined walking into the spotlight, the audience silent and waiting, and then pouring her soul into a song. She imagined the surprise on everyone's faces when they realized just how much she could do. These thoughts stayed with her, giving her strength during rehearsals. She began experimenting on her piano, playing pieces that reflected her emotions: sadness, hope, frustration, and joy. She felt that if she could just find the right moment, the world would finally hear her. At home, her parents noticed the sadness in her eyes. They had always supported her love for music, encouraging her to keep practicing and reminding her that talent was not always recognized immediately. They told her stories of famous musicians who had been ignored at first but eventually found their place. Their words comforted her, and she decided not to give up. Each day, she spent hours practicing both her piano and her voice, learning to combine the two in ways that would leave an impression. During choir practice, she started paying attention to how her voice blended with the others. She noticed where she could add strength and where she needed to step back. She listened to the harmonies and the dynamics, thinking about how she could make herself heard even when she wasn't the main soloist. Her quiet determination didn't go unnoticed by a few of the older choir members, who began to admire her dedication. Though they didn't say much, their glances of encouragement gave her hope. Outside school, she performed small recitals in her community. Sometimes it was just her and a few neighbors, other times small groups of friends. These experiences helped her gain confidence. She realized that performing wasn't only about applause. It was about connecting with people through music. She saw the smiles, the tears, and the way people leaned in to listen. These moments made her feel seen in a way that choir practice never had. Her piano became a place of experimentation. She would play melodies she had heard and add her own twists, creating something new each time. She wrote small pieces that reflected her thoughts and feelings, pieces she didn't share with anyone. She felt that these compositions were hers alone, a way to tell her story without needing words. She practiced late into the night, losing herself in the music, feeling every note vibrate through her body. Rehearsals for the concert grew more intense. The choir director demanded perfection, and the tension in the room was palpable. She noticed the main soloists practicing confidently, their voices strong and commanding. At times, she felt a pang of jealousy, but she quickly pushed it aside. Instead, she focused on improving her part, on making sure that if anyone listened carefully, they could hear the effort and emotion she poured into every note. Despite being overlooked, she began to notice small victories. Sometimes her voice would shine briefly during harmonies, and a few choir members would glance at her with approval. These moments, though fleeting, encouraged her to keep going. She realized that recognition wasn't always immediate, and that sometimes the most important validation came from within. She started to understand that her love for music itself was stronger than any desire for attention. As the day of the concert approached, her anxiety grew. She felt excitement and fear mixed together, knowing that she would have to perform in front of a large audience. She practiced her piano pieces over and over, making sure each note was perfect, imagining how the music would flow through the auditorium. She also practiced her breathing, her posture, and the expressions she would make, preparing herself for the moment she had always dreamed of. The night before the concert, she stayed up late at the piano. She played softly, almost whispering the notes, feeling the emotions rise inside her. She thought about all the times she had been overlooked, all the moments when her voice seemed invisible, and all the hours she had spent practicing alone. She realized that the music had always been her companion, her voice when no one was listening. She felt a quiet determination settle in her heart. Tomorrow, she would give everything she had, not knowing if anyone would notice, but knowing that she had poured herself into every note. That night, she fell asleep with the melody still in her head. It was a song of hope, of perseverance, and of hidden talent waiting to be revealed. She dreamt of the stage, the lights, and the moment when she would sit at the piano and let the music speak for her. In her dreams, the audience listened intently, captivated by her performance, and she felt the joy of being truly heard. The next morning, she woke up early, her heart pounding with anticipation. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that was simple but made her feel confident. She practiced a few final scales on her piano, letting her fingers remember the notes one last time. She ate breakfast quietly, feeling the excitement building. Today was the day when all her preparation, all her hidden hours of practice, would meet the stage. When she arrived at the auditorium, the buzz of activity was overwhelming. Choir members were chatting, warming up, and rehearsing final pieces. She felt a mix of nerves and excitement. She found a quiet corner and closed her eyes for a moment, taking deep breaths, reminding herself that the music was her friend, that the piano was her voice, and that she was ready. She knew that even if no one noticed her, she would have the satisfaction of giving her best. As she walked to the stage for the first rehearsal, she glanced at the other choir members, feeling both nervous and determined. She reminded herself that she had worked hard, that her talent was real, and that this was her chance to show it, even in small ways. She adjusted her posture, took a deep breath, and prepared to sing with all her heart, knowing that the journey she had taken to get here was just as important as any applause or recognition. The first rehearsal went as expected. Her voice blended with the others, sometimes rising, sometimes falling, but always present, even if unnoticed. She felt a mixture of pride and disappointment, but she didn't let it discourage her. She knew the real moment would come, and she held onto that hope tightly, letting it fuel her determination. Even though she was overlooked by the choir, she discovered something important about herself during these moments. Her love for music was unshakable, her dedication unwavering, and her talent undeniable. She began to understand that being overlooked did not define her worth or her abilities. She learned that sometimes the quietest voices carry the most powerful stories, and that her moment to shine might be closer than she thought. The anticipation of that moment gave her energy, hope, and a sense of purpose that carried her through the day, readying her for the surprise that awaited the audience, and the music that would soon tell her story. As the days passed, the excitement and tension around the upcoming concert grew stronger. The The choir members practiced tirelessly, their voices rising and falling in the rehearsal room, filling every corner with sound. She continued to follow along, singing her part with care, but each time the director called for the main soloists, her heart sank a little. She listened quietly, watching the others step forward with confidence, while she remained in the background, her own abilities largely unnoticed. At first, it was difficult to stay motivated. She felt invisible and unimportant, like all her hours of practice didn't matter. She wondered if anyone would ever truly recognize her talent. But then, she reminded herself of all the times she had found solace in her piano, the way music had always been there for her. She remembered the small recitals in her community, the smiles and nods of appreciation from people who listened. Those moments, though brief, kept her going. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting rehearsal, she stayed behind while the other choir members left. She sat quietly on the piano bench, her fingers moving across the keys almost automatically. The music she played reflected everything she felt, the frustration of being overlooked, the longing to be noticed, and the hope that one day, someone would hear her. She didn't realize how much time had passed until the director walked in. He stopped at the doorway, listening silently, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. "Your playing is beautiful," he said softly. She looked up, surprised, and nodded shyly, unsure of what to say. It was not a huge moment, but it meant something. It made her feel that her efforts were being seen, at least in part. She returned to the piano, more determined than ever to practice, to perfect her music, and to find a way to show everyone what she could do. The concert was only a week away, and anticipation filled the air. The choir director asked everyone to arrive early for a final rehearsal on stage. As she walked into the auditorium, she was struck by the size of the space. The stage seemed enormous, and the rows of empty seats stretched far into the distance. She could almost imagine them filled with people, all eyes watching, all ears waiting. The thought made her nervous, but it also sparked a strange excitement. During the rehearsal, the main soloists performed their pieces flawlessly. Their voices were strong and commanding, drawing attention effortlessly. She sang her assigned parts as usual, blending into the background, but inside, a quiet determination grew. She realized that she didn't need to compete with the others. Instead, she needed to find her own moment, her own way to be heard. One evening, she stayed late at school after everyone had left. The empty rehearsal room felt peaceful, almost magical. She sat at the piano and began playing, letting her emotions flow freely. She tried something new, combining elements of a song she had sung with a melody she had composed herself. The sound was different, more personal, and it filled the room in a way that made her heart race. She realized that she could create something unique, something that could capture the attention of anyone who listened. She began practicing this piece every day, refining it and adding small touches that reflected her feelings. She paid attention to every note, every pause, every subtle change in tempo. It wasn't just about playing the piano. It was about telling a story, expressing herself in a way that words could not. She felt more alive than ever, and the piano became a bridge between her inner world and the audience she hoped to reach. The night before the concert, she barely slept. Her mind was full of melodies and harmonies, and she kept imagining the performance. She rehearsed in her room quietly, careful not to disturb anyone. She knew that tomorrow would be her chance, even if she wasn't officially recognized as a soloist. She didn't know how it would happen, but she felt that the right moment would come, and she would be ready. The morning of the concert arrived with a mix of nerves and excitement. She got dressed in her favorite outfit, something simple that made her feel confident. Her parents gave her reassuring smiles, reminding her that talent and dedication always shine through, even when it seems like no one notices. She took a deep breath, feeling a calm determination settle in her chest. Today was the day she would give everything she had. At the auditorium, the energy was electric. Choir members hurried to their places, tuning their voices and instruments. Stagehands moved equipment, and the audience began to arrive. She found a quiet corner to warm up, taking deep breaths and running through the piece she had been practicing on her piano. Her hands trembled slightly, but she focused on the music, letting it center her and calm her nerves. The concert began, and the choir performed beautifully. The audience applauded politely, enjoying the familiar songs and harmonies. She watched from the sidelines, her heart beating faster, waiting for the right moment. She knew that her part in the choir was minor, but she also knew that she had something special to offer, something that could not be ignored if given the chance. During one of the intermissions, she noticed that the piano was unguarded, easily accessible from the stage. A sudden thought came to her mind, a bold idea that made her pulse quicken. She could play her piece now, even if it wasn't officially scheduled. She looked around, making sure no one was watching too closely, and quietly moved to the piano. She sat down, her fingers hovering over the keys. She took a deep breath, letting her emotions flow into her hands. Then she began to play. The first notes were soft, tentative, but gradually, the music grew stronger, more confident, more expressive. Each note carried her feelings, her frustration, her hope, her dreams, and her determination. The sound filled the auditorium, and slowly people began to notice. At first, a few students in the choir looked up in surprise. Then, the director turned around, his eyes widening as he listened. The audience, unaware of what had happened, began to quiet down, drawn in by the unexpected music. The piano sang with a voice that was different from the choir, yet equally powerful. It was her own voice, her own story, unfolding with every note. She didn't stop. She played with all her heart, pouring every ounce of emotion into the performance. She felt free, alive, and completely present. The music seemed to stretch out and wrap around the entire room, reaching every listener in a way that nothing else could. People were moved, some leaning forward in their seats, others closing their eyes, lost in the sound. The director approached her quietly, almost reverently, realizing that this was a moment he could not have predicted. He watched, astonished, as the girl he had overlooked transformed the auditorium with her piano. The choir members, too, were stunned, recognizing a depth of talent they had never fully appreciated before. She played on, oblivious to their reactions, fully absorbed in the music and the story she was telling. When the last note faded, the room was silent for a brief moment, as if everyone was holding their breath. Then, applause erupted, loud and enthusiastic, filling the auditorium with sound. People stood, clapping and cheering, their faces full of amazement. She felt a rush of emotion, relief, joy, pride, and a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She had finally been seen, truly seen, for the first time. The director approached her after the performance, smiling warmly. "That was incredible," he said. "I should have recognized your talent sooner." She smiled back, feeling a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about praise or recognition. It was about proving to herself that her voice, her music, and her passion mattered. She had taken a risk and it had paid off. The rest of the concert continued, but she knew that her moment had changed everything. The audience talked about her performance long after the concert ended, praising the emotion, skill, and uniqueness of her piano solo. Choir members came up to her, congratulating her and expressing admiration. She realized that being overlooked before did not diminish her abilities. It only made this moment more powerful. That night, as she went home, she felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She had faced her doubts, taken a chance, and shared her gift with the world. She knew that the path ahead would have challenges, but she also knew that she had the courage and talent to face them. She sat at her own piano at home, playing softly, reflecting on the day, and feeling a quiet pride in what she had accomplished. For the first time, she felt that her voice truly mattered, and she carried that feeling with her into every note she would play in the future. The days after the concert were filled with a strange mixture of excitement and reflection. She walked through the halls of her school, and for the first time, she noticed people looking at her differently. Whispers followed her, smiles lingered, and a few students stopped to compliment her piano performance. The feeling was new, almost surreal. She had always imagined recognition, but experiencing it was different. It was both thrilling and slightly overwhelming. Her friends, who had seen her quietly practicing for months, congratulated her with genuine warmth. Some said they had always known she was talented, but it was clear that her solo had changed the way everyone perceived her. Even the choir director, who had often overlooked her, now treated her with a newfound respect. He approached her one day after rehearsal, his voice sincere. "You have a gift," he said. "Don't let anyone make you doubt it again." She smiled, feeling a sense of validation, but more importantly, a quiet confidence that had grown within her. Despite the praise, she remained humble. She knew that her journey was far from over. The solo had been a breakthrough, but she also understood that talent alone was not enough. She needed to continue practicing, learning, and growing as a musician. Her piano became her sanctuary once more, a place where she could explore, experiment, and express herself without fear or expectation. She began composing her own music, drawing inspiration from everything around her: the rustle of leaves in the wind, the laughter of children playing, the gentle hum of city life. Each piece told a story, a reflection of her emotions and experiences. She discovered that creating music was not only a way to share her talent, but also a means of understanding herself more deeply. Every note she wrote, every chord she played, became a part of her identity. In school, she was invited to perform at smaller events and community gatherings. These experiences helped her gain confidence in public performances. Each time she played, she felt more comfortable in her own skin, more capable of sharing her music with others. The nervousness she once felt began to fade, replaced by a calm assurance that her voice, both vocal and instrumental, could touch people in ways words often could not. Her relationship with the choir also evolved. Though she was no longer overlooked, she did not seek the spotlight aggressively. Instead, she focused on supporting her peers, helping them refine their harmonies, and encouraging them to express themselves fully. The choir became a collaborative space, where her presence and guidance contributed to the group's overall performance. She realized that leadership did not always mean being in front. Sometimes it meant nurturing the talents of others while continuing to grow her own. At home, she continued to practice relentlessly. She explored different genres of music, from classical to jazz, from contemporary melodies to experimental sounds. She learned that versatility was a strength, and she embraced the challenge of adapting her style to various musical forms. Her piano became not just an instrument but a storyteller, capable of conveying complex emotions without a single word. The more she played, the more she understood the power of music to connect, heal, and inspire. One afternoon, she received an invitation to perform at a regional music competition. It was an opportunity she had never imagined, a chance to share her music with a wider audience and gain professional feedback. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The thought of performing in front of judges and competitors was daunting, but she also knew that this was a chance to grow, to challenge herself, and to see how far her dedication could take her. She began preparing for the competition with meticulous care. She selected pieces that reflected her strengths and emotional depth, practicing each one until it resonated perfectly. She worked on her posture, her breathing, and her stage presence. She imagined the audience listening, visualizing how her music would reach them, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each practice session became an opportunity to refine her craft and strengthen her confidence. Her parents supported her throughout this journey, offering encouragement and practical advice. They reminded her that the competition was not just about winning but about growth and expression. Their support was unwavering, and it gave her the courage to embrace the challenge fully. She felt their pride and belief in her abilities, which fueled her determination to succeed. The day of the competition arrived, and the venue was grand and intimidating. She felt the familiar flutter of nerves in her stomach but took a deep breath, grounding herself in the music. She approached the stage, feeling the weight of expectation but also the excitement of opportunity. As she sat at the piano, she closed her eyes for a moment, connecting with the music and her emotions. This was her chance to tell her story, to share the journey she had undertaken, and to be heard in a way that was uniquely her own. Her performance began softly, each note deliberate and expressive. The judges listened intently, and the audience gradually became captivated by the depth of her music. She played with precision and emotion, allowing the piano to convey her feelings and experiences. The room seemed to hold its breath as she moved through the pieces, the audience responding with subtle reactions that encouraged her to continue pouring her heart into the performance. As she reached the climax of her final piece, the music swelled, filling the venue with a powerful, moving sound. Every note resonated with her journey, her struggles, her perseverance, and her triumphs. She felt completely immersed in the moment, her fingers moving instinctively, guided by both skill and emotion. When the last note faded, the silence that followed was profound, as if the entire room was reflecting on what they had just heard. Then, applause erupted, growing louder and more enthusiastic. People stood, cheering and clapping, moved by the intensity and beauty of her performance. She felt a surge of emotion, a mix of relief, joy, and pride. She had not only performed well but had conveyed her story in a way that touched the audience deeply. In that moment, she realized that her music had the power to move people, to create connections, and to leave a lasting impression. The judges offered their feedback, praising her technical skill, emotional expression, and unique style. They acknowledged her creativity and the personal touch she brought to her performance. While the competition was fierce, she felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond winning or losing. She had proven to herself that dedication, practice, and authenticity could overcome obstacles and silence doubts. After the competition, she returned home, feeling a sense of fulfillment. She reflected on how far she had come, from being overlooked in the choir to standing on a stage, sharing her music with confidence and impact. She understood that recognition was not always immediate, but perseverance and belief in oneself could lead to moments of breakthrough and personal triumph. Her piano continued to be her companion, her confidant, and her storyteller. She played for herself, for her audience, and for the joy of creating something beautiful. Each day brought new opportunities to learn, experiment, and grow as a musician. She embraced challenges, knowing that every note, every practice session, and every performance was a step forward in her journey. She also learned valuable lessons about patience and resilience. Being overlooked in the choir had been difficult, but it had taught her the importance of perseverance and self-belief. She realized that recognition, while gratifying, was not the ultimate measure of her worth or talent. What mattered most was her dedication, her love for music, and her commitment to expressing herself fully. Through her experiences, she became a source of inspiration for others. Younger students and peers looked up to her, admiring her talent, discipline, and humility. She offered guidance, encouragement, and support, helping others find their voices and develop their skills. In doing so, she discovered that sharing her knowledge and passion could create a ripple effect, encouraging others to pursue their dreams with confidence. Her journey was far from over, but she felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. She had transformed challenges into opportunities, doubts into motivation, and obstacles into triumphs. Each performance, each composition, and each practice session was a testament to her resilience and determination. She understood that the path of a musician was filled with both struggles and rewards, and she embraced it fully, knowing that her voice, whether through singing or piano, had the power to leave a lasting impact. As she sat at her piano one evening, reflecting on the past months, she felt a quiet pride in her journey. The music that had once been her private companion had now become her voice in the world. She had learned that being overlooked did not define her, and that patience, perseverance, and authenticity could lead to moments of profound recognition and fulfillment. The piano keys beneath her fingers felt alive, each note a reminder of how far she had come and how much more she had to share. She closed her eyes, letting the music flow, knowing that her story was only beginning, and that every note she played carried the power to inspire, connect, and transform. The excitement of performing in front of an audience never faded for her. Each concert, recital, or community event was a new opportunity to share a piece of herself through music. She began receiving invitations to perform in different towns and at school events, and each time she prepared, she poured her heart into every note. Her piano became an extension of her emotions, a way to communicate what words could not. She discovered that people didn't just hear her music, they felt it. Despite her growing recognition, she remained grounded. She knew that talent alone was not enough to sustain her path. She continued practicing for hours every day, focusing on precision, expression, and the emotional depth of her performances. She experimented with different styles, blending classical techniques with contemporary melodies, and occasionally even creating her own arrangements. Each piece she played became a reflection of her growth, both as a musician and as a person. Her relationship with the choir deepened as well. Though she had initially felt overlooked, her new experiences allowed her to contribute in meaningful ways. She helped younger students find their confidence, offering tips and encouragement to those who were struggling. She began mentoring some of the choir members, teaching them how to pay attention to dynamics, timing, and emotional expression. This gave her a sense of fulfillment she hadn't anticipated, as she realized that success was not only about being in the spotlight but also about lifting others along the way. One day, the school announced an upcoming cultural festival, a major event with a large audience, including local officials, parents, and music enthusiasts. Each choir member was expected to perform, but the organizers were also open to individual performances. She saw this as an opportunity to showcase not only her piano skills but her voice as well. She knew that the combination of her singing and playing could leave a lasting impression, and she wanted to seize the moment. She began preparing meticulously. Each day, she practiced her chosen pieces, adjusting her posture, breathing, and hand movements to ensure flawless execution. She worked on combining singing and piano, a skill that required immense coordination and emotional control. Some days were frustrating, as she struggled to synchronize the two, but she refused to give up. The challenge only motivated her more. She visualized herself on stage, imagining how the music would flow, how the audience would respond, and how she would feel as she poured herself into the performance. Her parents noticed her dedication and offered support and encouragement. They reminded her that the most important aspect was expressing herself and enjoying the music, not just impressing the audience. Their words reassured her, allowing her to focus on the joy of performing rather than the pressure of perfection. She felt their pride and belief in her abilities, and it fueled her determination to give her best performance yet. The day of the festival arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Students hurried backstage, rehearsing their parts, while organizers moved equipment and checked schedules. She could hear the murmur of the audience as they began filling the seats. Nerves and excitement mixed inside her, but she took a deep breath and reminded herself that she was prepared, capable, and ready to share her music. The choir performed first, their voices blending harmoniously, creating a beautiful introduction to the festival. She participated, singing her parts with care, blending into the ensemble, but her heart was focused on the moment she would step forward for her solo. The audience was engaged, enjoying the performance, and she could feel their attention shift slightly as anticipation built for the individual acts that followed. Finally, it was her turn. She walked onto the stage, her heart pounding, but her mind calm and focused. She sat at the piano, adjusted the bench, and took a deep breath. The first note rang out, soft and deliberate, capturing the audience's attention immediately. She began her piece, singing gently while her fingers moved gracefully across the keys. The music was personal, a reflection of her journey, struggles, and triumphs. Each note carried emotion, and the audience could feel the depth of her expression. As the performance continued, the room became silent except for the music. People leaned forward, listening intently, captivated by the combination of her piano skills and her voice. Her confidence grew with each passing moment, and the music flowed naturally, each phrase more expressive than the last. She felt a profound connection with the audience, as if the music were a bridge between her inner world and theirs. The solo was not just a performance. It was a story, a revelation of her determination and talent. The final notes lingered in the air, and for a brief moment, there was complete silence. Then, applause erupted, growing louder and louder until the entire audience was clapping and cheering. She felt a rush of joy and relief, a sense of fulfillment that was almost overwhelming. The recognition she had longed for had arrived, not through words or praise alone, but through the impact of her music on others. The festival organizers and audience members approached her afterward, offering compliments and congratulations. Many expressed amazement at her ability to combine singing and piano so seamlessly, noting the emotional depth of her performance. Some asked if she had considered pursuing music professionally, while others simply wanted to share how moved they had been. She felt humbled and grateful, understanding that her hard work and dedication had resonated with others in a meaningful way. Her peers in the choir were also impressed, approaching her with admiration and curiosity. They asked for advice and tips, eager to learn from her experience. She shared her knowledge generously, offering guidance on technique, practice habits, and emotional expression. She realized that her journey had not only elevated her own abilities, but had also inspired those around her to explore their potential. Over the following weeks, she continued to receive invitations to perform at different events, both within and outside the school. Each opportunity allowed her to refine her skills, build confidence, and connect with new audiences. She embraced each performance as a chance to grow and express herself, understanding that the journey of a musician was a continuous process of learning and discovery. At home, she dedicated herself to composing new pieces, experimenting with melodies, harmonies, and rhythms. She explored different musical genres, blending classical influences with contemporary sounds, and occasionally incorporating elements of improvisation. Her piano became a laboratory for creativity, a place where she could test ideas, express emotions, and develop her unique style. The more she experimented, the more she discovered the breadth of her own capabilities. She also reflected on the lessons she had learned from being overlooked in the choir. Those experiences had taught her resilience, patience, and the importance of believing in herself. She understood that recognition was not always immediate and that true talent often required perseverance and dedication. Her journey had reinforced the idea that personal growth and self-expression were just as valuable, if not more so, than external validation. As she continued to perform and compose, she noticed subtle changes in the way others perceived her. Teachers, peers, and community members began to seek her out for guidance and collaboration. They recognized not only her talent but also her commitment, humility, and willingness to support others. She realized that her journey was not solely about personal achievement, but also about creating a positive impact on those around her. She took time to mentor younger students, helping them develop their skills and confidence. She encouraged them to explore their creativity, express their emotions through music, and embrace challenges with determination. Through this process, she discovered the joy of nurturing talent in others, understanding that the act of sharing knowledge and experience could be as rewarding as performing herself. Her growth as a musician and as a person became increasingly intertwined. Each performance, practice session, and mentorship opportunity contributed to her understanding of music, artistry, and human connection. She learned to appreciate the nuances of expression, the importance of patience and preparation, and the power of resilience in the face of challenges. Her journey was no longer defined solely by recognition but by the depth of her experiences and the authenticity of her expression. As she prepared for future performances, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her music was no longer just a personal outlet. It was a medium through which she could connect with others, inspire change, and leave a lasting impression. She embraced each opportunity with enthusiasm, knowing that her dedication, creativity, and emotional honesty would continue to resonate with audiences. In quiet moments at home, she reflected on how far she had come. From being overlooked in the choir to performing confidently at major events, she had learned the importance of perseverance, self-belief, and embracing one's unique abilities. She understood that challenges were an essential part of growth, and that each obstacle she had faced had strengthened her determination and skill. Her piano continued to be a source of comfort, inspiration, and self-expression. She played not only for others but also for herself, allowing the music to convey her emotions, tell her stories, and explore her creativity. Each note, chord, and melody was a testament to her journey, her dedication, and the transformative power of music. As the months passed, she embraced new challenges, sought out diverse performance opportunities, and continued to mentor aspiring musicians. She understood that her path was ongoing, filled with both struggles and triumphs, and she welcomed each experience as a chance to grow, connect, and express herself. Her voice, once overlooked, had found its place, and through her piano, she continued to leave an indelible mark on everyone who listened. As time went on, she began to understand the true power of her music. The recognition she had received was gratifying, but the deeper reward was the connection she felt with her audience. Each performance was a conversation without words, a way to express emotions that were often too complex or deep for speech. She began to see that music was not just about talent or applause. It was about touching lives, inspiring others, and sharing pieces of herself in the most honest way possible. She continued performing at various events, sometimes solo, sometimes with the choir, and occasionally in collaboration with other musicians. Each setting was unique, and she learned to adapt her approach, tailoring her expression to the mood, the audience, and the space. She discovered the subtle ways in which music could evoke emotions. A gentle chord could calm, a sharp note could surprise, and a rising melody could lift spirits. These realizations deepened her understanding of her craft and inspired her to explore new techniques and compositions. In school, her story became an inspiration to other students. Younger choir members and musicians looked up to her, not just for her talent, but for her perseverance and humility. They saw how someone who had once been overlooked could rise through dedication, courage, and passion. She offered guidance whenever asked, sharing tips on practice routines, stage presence, and the importance of expressing emotions authentically. She found joy in seeing others grow, understanding that her influence could help create a community of musicians who supported and inspired each other. She also began composing more ambitious pieces, drawing from her experiences and the stories of people around her. Each composition was a reflection of life itself, moments of struggle, hope, joy, and discovery. She experimented with combining piano and vocals, sometimes weaving in other instruments, and occasionally collaborating with local musicians to create richer, layered sounds. Her creativity seemed limitless, and each new piece challenged her to refine her skills and expand her musical vocabulary. One day, she received an invitation to perform at a citywide music showcase. This was a significant event, with a large audience and professional judges from the music community. It was a prestigious opportunity, and she felt both nervous and excited. She knew that this performance could open doors for her, but more importantly, it was a chance to share her growth, her passion, and her story through music. She prepared meticulously. Every day was filled with practice, refining her compositions, and ensuring that her piano and vocals were perfectly synchronized. She paid attention to the smallest details, the subtle dynamics, the timing of breaths, the emotional phrasing. Her goal was not just to play the notes correctly, but to communicate every feeling, every thought, and every experience she had poured into her music. She imagined the audience listening, feeling each note, and connecting with her story, and it motivated her to give her absolute best. Her parents, as always, were supportive. They reminded her that the performance was an opportunity to express herself, and that the impact of her music could be more meaningful than any award or recognition. Their encouragement helped calm her nerves and reminded her why she had started this journey in the first place: the love for music and the joy of sharing it with others. On the day of the showcase, the venue was grand, with a large stage, bright lights, and rows of seats filled with eager listeners. Backstage, she felt a mixture of excitement and tension. She could hear the applause from earlier performers, and it reminded her of the responsibility she felt to deliver something special. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her thoughts settle and centering herself with deep breaths. She reminded herself that her journey, her dedication, and her love for music had led her to this moment. When it was her turn, she walked onto the stage with quiet confidence. She took her place at the piano and sat down, feeling the familiar connection between her fingers and the keys. The lights dimmed slightly, and a hush fell over the audience. She began to play. The first notes were soft, delicate, drawing the listeners in, and gradually the music grew richer, more complex, and more expressive. She sang gently over the piano, blending her voice with the melody, creating a performance that was both intimate and powerful. As the music continued, the audience was captivated. They leaned forward in their seats, listening closely, drawn into the story she was telling through her performance. Her emotions flowed naturally into her playing and singing, and she felt fully present in the moment. The stage became a space where her experiences, hopes, and dreams could be shared freely, without judgment, without interruption. She felt an incredible connection with everyone in the room, as if the music had bridged the gap between hearts. By the time she reached the climax of her piece, the room was completely absorbed. Her fingers moved with precision and emotion, her voice conveying every nuance of feeling. The combination of piano and vocals created a powerful narrative that was both personal and universal. When the final note lingered and faded, there was a moment of silence, as if the audience were collectively catching their breath, reflecting on what they had just experienced. Then, applause erupted, louder and more enthusiastic than she had imagined. The audience rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and some even wiping away tears. She felt a rush of fulfillment, knowing that her performance had touched so many people in a profound way. The recognition she had longed for was finally here, but it felt different now. It was not about validation alone. It was about knowing that her music could move, inspire, and connect with others on a deep level. After the performance, judges and audience members approached her, offering words of praise and admiration. They spoke of the emotional depth, technical skill, and unique expression she had demonstrated. Some asked about her future plans, suggesting opportunities for further study and professional growth. She listened humbly, grateful for the acknowledgement, but she also felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that she had shared her heart through her music. Her peers in the choir and the music community were equally impressed. They expressed admiration for her dedication, resilience, and the courage it took to perform so honestly and powerfully. Some younger students sought her guidance, eager to learn from her experience and develop their own musical voices. She embraced this role, understanding that mentorship and encouragement were part of the journey she had chosen. Over the following weeks, her life continued to revolve around music, each day offering new opportunities to perform, create, and inspire. She experimented with compositions, collaborated with other musicians, and refined her skills. She discovered that growth was an ongoing process, and each experience, whether challenging or rewarding, contributed to her development as a musician and as a person. She also reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Being overlooked in the choir had been a difficult and sometimes painful experience, but it had taught her resilience, patience, and self-belief. She realized that those challenges had strengthened her determination, allowing her to reach a level of artistry and emotional expression that might not have been possible otherwise. She embraced the lessons of the past, understanding that every struggle had shaped her into the musician she had become. Her piano continued to be her companion, a source of comfort, inspiration, and self-expression. She played not only for audiences but also for herself, exploring new melodies, harmonies, and rhythms. Each piece she created was a reflection of her journey, a testament to her perseverance, and a story shared through music. She found joy in both the act of performing and the process of creation, understanding that each note had the potential to convey emotions and experiences that words could not. As she moved forward, she embraced new challenges and opportunities with confidence. She understood that her path as a musician was ongoing, filled with both obstacles and triumphs, and she welcomed each experience as a chance to learn, grow, and connect. Her voice, once overlooked, had found its place, and her piano became the instrument through which she could continue to inspire and touch the lives of others. In quiet moments at home, she often reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the early days of feeling invisible in the choir, the hours of practice, the small performances in her community, and the determination that had driven her forward. She realized that every experience had contributed to her growth, shaping not only her musical abilities, but also her character, resilience, and understanding of herself. She understood that true success was not measured solely by recognition or applause, but by the ability to express oneself authentically, touch the hearts of others, and continue to grow despite challenges. Her journey had shown her the value of perseverance, dedication, and self-belief, and she carried these lessons into every note she played and every performance she gave. Through her music, she continued to inspire those around her, offering guidance, encouragement, and a living example of how dedication and passion can overcome obstacles. She understood that her influence extended beyond the stage, shaping the aspirations and confidence of others who looked up to her. Each performance, each composition, and each moment of sharing her music contributed to a legacy of inspiration and artistic expression. Her story was no longer defined by being overlooked. It was defined by resilience, growth, and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. She had discovered that music was more than notes and melodies. It was a language of the heart, a bridge between souls, and a powerful force for connection and expression. Through her piano and her voice, she continued to share her journey, leaving an enduring impact on everyone who had the privilege of listening.